a lot of people they're saying, well, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm start doing this digital marketing thing. It's like, no. It's an ecosystem. We need word of mouth. We want the referrals. We want the authority. We need the ads. All of the top of mind awareness and all of that stuff works together. It's not just one trick pony. And people who do one thing and they get successful at it and they get rid of everything else, eventually that one thing stops working and they become broke very fast.
Welcome to the B2B Digital Marketer Podcast, a podcast helping you to end your struggle with digital marketing, helping you to pave a new and better path to target and capture your ideal customer. Each week, we teach you how insiders and experts debunk the dreary and become engines of innovation. Now, here's your host, Jim Rembach.
Okay, B2B DM gang, man, we're going to have a great discussion today because we got Buzz with us, right? We got Michael Buzzinski. Mike, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay,
thanks for having me, Jim.
Hey, you're welcome, man. All right. For those who are not aware, he is the author of the book, The Rule of 26. And so what does the Rule of 26 really focus in on? Well, it's like the title of this particular episode. It's why do B2B and specifically focus on service businesses? Why do B2B service businesses fail at digital marketing? So Mike, tell us a little bit about your background and why these businesses are failing.
Thanks, Jim. So we'll start with my background, I guess. I am a 10-year Air Force veteran. I'm a failed musician. And I am a serial entrepreneur. I've been in marketing for over 35 years. I started back when I was a teenager before the service. And throughout the years, even when I was serving, I had side hustles and that were in and around sales and marketing. So I own a company called Buzzworthy Integrated Marketing, and we work with service-based businesses to help them radically increase the revenue they're getting from their website. And so I wrote the book. So to answer your question, most B2B service-based businesses fail at digital marketing because they don't believe in it. They don't believe that their website can actually make them money. And it comes from the early days of the internet, where websites were more about just having an online brochure than having a salesperson that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, never takes a sick day, doesn't take holidays, and never asks for a raise, right? And they say exactly what you want them to say every single time to every single visitor. And if you don't believe that, then you're just setting yourself up for failure regardless of what you do with it, because you're not going to set it up properly. So it all stems from belief. And then because they don't believe in it, they don't execute what I describe in my book, the Rule of 26, or the three things that you need to have profitable traffic, which is profitable traffic. So targeted traffic, high conversion rate, which, with you working how you work with your clients, getting the right message, talking to the pain points of the person on the website, and then the average value per client, making sure that we are attracting our most profitable client prospects so that we're not wasting time with people, tire kickers, or the least profitable clients.
So, and as you were talking, man, there's so many questions that run through my head. One is that I talk about the ICP and the ideal customer profile. And so for me, right, it's not quite the same as a persona. Unfortunately, when you start thinking about personas, that starts taking you down a path of what I say, creating a picture of somebody that you can visualize, right?
The avatar, right?
Yeah, the avatar. But ICP,
a buzzword that I hope dies in 2022.
A lot of people would have to have, as they say, a come to Jesus meeting in regards to that, right? Okay, right. So the ICP, I start now getting into some of those, psychological drivers. Right. I start getting into, things that are maybe specific to, industries. I mean, for example, I start, really having a very different outlook in regards to how I am communicating non-verbally. right? And I think that's an important thing to note, is that all of us, are influenced and impacted by nonverbal communication. And your website is that, isn't it?
It is, and it isn't. I find that when we talk about avatars and what do they look like, do they have blonde hair and stuff like that, those are all visual cues that you can utilize to the generalization of your industry. But with the diversity we have in the United States, you kind of isolating yourself into one or another type of look, right? Either they have dark hair or they have light hair. Either they're light skin or they have dark skin. I mean, they're female, they're male, or maybe they're, binary, and all that good stuff, right? Like, we have such an identity crisis as people as it is today, to try to sit there and say, hey, my ideal client is a female who is 35 with blonde hair, blue eyes, and likes to play racquetball on Saturdays. Like, no, like that doesn't do you any good. And they're little things, right? Now, I feel like what you're talking about, those nonverbals are the meanings behind the words that you do say, because I feel that the words mean something, right? So because they're hearing what you're saying in text in their head. Most people hear an audible version of what's being read. Okay. So on my website, I have a navigation. It says, I need. I put that there because when you read it, it's you as the reader saying, I need. And if one of the 6 things that we have to offer right there resonate, you're automatically clicking on it because you're talking to yourself. I need X. Yes, I do. Click. It's all about me, right? So that right there creates that nonverbal through verbal, right? Because we have both. We're never just sitting there looking at a word and not saying it to ourselves. So that's why I say both.
That's a very important, very tactical example of what you're talking about. Now, you also talk about an acronym that is essentially something that would help, these, service-based, B2B service-based businesses be more successful in digital marketing. It's called SIMPLE.
Yes.
What is SIMPLE?
So SIMPLE is an acronym that lines out the 6 steps of the digital marketing cycle. And it's specifically for a business that's already doing marketing. Okay. So S stands for streamline. So there's a saying, 50% of everybody's marketing is working. Problem is that most people don't know which 50% is working and which is not. So that's your first step. We have to figure out what is working and what is not. We have to streamline and get rid of the stuff that's not profitable to give ourselves room to identify the second letter in there, opportunities, new ways to market, or maybe new angles to use the same marketing. Once we have identified that, then we're going to use the M, and that's in market research. How can we best implement these ideas and these opportunities, right? Once we've done that research, we need to plan on how we're going to implement it. Because without a plan, we're just shooting in the dark. And most people do that. They go, ooh, shiny object. I click here, I pay here. This guy tells me to do XYZ for 90 days, and my whole life changes. Very, very few times in marketing does that happen. Very few times. Okay. So once we have a good plan, then we need to launch it, and we need to manage that launch properly and make sure everything's going. And as it's being launched and it's running, we then get to the last one, which is evaluate. And we take a look at what's working and what's not. So we never have to guess which 50% is working and which is not. And once we get to that evaluations point, now we can streamline again. And then the cycle goes all over.
Okay. So I want to go back to something you said a moment ago. And you said that a lot of these B2B service-based businesses just don't believe in digital marketing. And I kind of scratch my head with that. And I'm like, then why am I... And maybe this is the reason why I get pelted with a whole lot of, people who are trying to essentially pitch me services related to, a B2B service business, is just because I fall, when people query stuff, I fall into this category and are not quite sure. And therefore I'm getting blasted and sold to all the time. Am I getting blasted because it is people don't believe it, or is that everybody wants it? Where's the breakdown and breakout here?
The reason it depends on how you're getting blasted. If you're getting blasted by email, somebody's playing a numbers game. If you're getting blasted by people on LinkedIn, you have people who are using digital marketing as a networking tool and still playing a numbers game. I believe in inbound marketing. So if we build authority out there for people who are actually looking for guidance in what you provide, those are the people we need to talk to. But when you're getting blasted by people who are looking at you at the top of the funnel, right? You don't know who they are. You don't know what they do, right? They're just trying to get in front of you to say, hey, I exist. Hi, look at me for a second. Because hopefully you're one of the 5% of the people who are actually in the market of what they are offering at that moment. And that's what a lot of people, when they're working with numbers in the numbers game, like email marketing and some of this outreach, is they're trying to wade through the 5%. Only 5% of the people they're reaching are actually in the market. So first we got to find who those are, and then we have to then push them down that sales funnel.
Well, okay. So 5 is, okay. You talk about who's ready to buy, who's out there in the marketplace, and who's at that decision-making piece. I've seen it range anywhere from 1%,
depending on the industry.
Exactly. 1 to about 7%. I think it's important to know where you fit,
right.
The other thing is, we talked about what you are often asked and what these, B2B service-based businesses, are requesting more insight and information on, or even maybe you can give them pushback or saying that, hey, I rely on X. They talk about word of mouth marketing. They talk about referral marketing. And for me, when I start thinking about that, I can't base projections and understand the scalability of my business because it's really founded in hope. That's hope marketing. I hope that these referrals are going to work. I hope that this word of mouth is going to work.
You're hoping, and you're also projecting your arrogance. When you think about the fact that word of mouth and referral is based on other people talking about you, you are arrogant enough to think that you are on the top of mind of everybody you've touched enough to always be talking about you and always referring you. Right? And so that's not scalable because people are selfish. We have to put food on our own tables. We have to make our numbers. We have to, do all the things that are out there. And we're barraged by over 5,000 media hits a day on top of your brand. And your brand is only one of their friends, right? We have more than one friend. And so how are we going to keep that all there? The human brain can't do that. So to think that that's scalable is really naive. To put it bluntly, right? When we look at digital marketing and we work with what we say in all of the word of mouth and referral marketing that we do, and we can get that on paper and then digitize it and then get it out there for when people are looking for that type of advice, that type of content, because studies show that people are doing a lot more research before they start shopping. They want to understand what solution they're looking for before they decide to look at who can provide that solution.
Okay, so now you need to help me clarify something because you talked about, authority and creating authority, and you talked about, inbound, but then you're also saying that if I'm relying on word of mouth and I'm relying on referrals, that, I'm being arrogant and naive. So wait a minute. Aren't you actually building them to get to that point? And also too,
okay, that's a good question.
You got to help me understand that. And then the other thing is, well, when I start thinking about SEO, when I start thinking about, especially in B2B, the massive increase in content that's been generated, since COVID, and it was happening pre-COVID, and it just 40x'd it. And also talking about B2B companies are looking to spend 66% more in 2022 on all of this content creation stuff. How in the hell am I going to be able to stand out? I mean, it's just not going to happen. So,
okay, let's go the first one first.
Okay.
Word of mouth is personality. Okay. Authority is content that is on the search engines for people to find. 68% of all purchases start with a search query. If you're not on the first page of that query, you have zero chance. Well, take that back. You have a 0.02 chance of getting that business. Okay. That's the difference between the two. Okay. When we're out there word of mouth, that's just top of mind advertising marketing, right? And it's very important. A lot of people they're saying, well, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm start doing this digital marketing thing. It's like, no. It's an ecosystem. We need word of mouth. We want the referrals. We want the authority. We need the ads. All of the top of mind awareness and all of that stuff works together. It's not just one trick pony. And people who do one thing and they get successful at it and they get rid of everything else, eventually that one thing stops working and they become broke very fast, right? So let's go to the second thing. So you can pay for that inbound through search engine marketing, which is Google Ads, okay? You can pay for top of mind awareness through social media marketing, TV, OTT, radio, signs, all that stuff, right? That's all part of that ecosystem, okay? Now the content that's being created, the people who are doing content the best are the folks who are creating content that is most specific to the niche that they're actually going after. To go broad is to get lost in the noise. To go narrow and deep is to stick out like a sore thumb. And that's what we have to be. So some would argue that my niche I work with service-based business is not broad enough. Unfortunately, I've been doing it so long that I have a system that works with any type of service-based business because I have a process that works through the individualism of that business and the service that they provide, right? Not everybody has 30 years experience in marketing. So when we're first starting out, if we start too wide because we're just trying to get all the business we possibly can at that time, and I started there, right? We all did, right? But as we get good and better and figure out what's the most profitable, we start understanding, well, I really only enjoy working with this type of company, providing this product or service, needing this solution. Once you start doing that, your content becomes very sharp and very focused. And that right there for the searcher is more valuable than the generalist.
Okay. So if I start thinking about that in the search engine world, and I start thinking about that in the world of differentiation and niching or niching, however you want to say it, potato.
Tomato.
Yep. I'm starting to get into my long tail. I'm starting to get into my long tail and searches. I'm starting to get into more buyer intent, type of queries.
Yeah.
And so
further down on the sales, right? We don't want to compete at that 66% increase of content that's just trying to trigger people's look over here, right? We're looking for people who are like, I have this problem. How do I solve this problem? If you can match that and you find out that there's search volume on just that, and then you look and you're like, well, the big guys are not even seeing that. They're not going down farther. The longer the term that somebody puts in, the further along the sales process they are. So if you can get a search term that has volume, that has 4 to 5 words to it, is 10 times more profitable for you, even though there's not as much volume as a short term of 1 or 2 words. That 4 to 5 words is much more profitable for you because they're self-identifying as a person looking for your solution and in the buying mode. Those are the people I want to talk to every day.
Well, okay. And so when you said that, that little old light bulb that sometimes just flickers in my head went a little bit brighter, is I started looking at and thinking about, congruence. Okay.
100%.
So if I am a B2B service-based business, that I would have to say that unless I am, a larger size organization, I'm only looking for 1 or 2, people that fit my ICP, right? So
it depends on your sales cycle and it depends on your retention. Like, do you have an ongoing business or do you service, or do you have a one-off business?
Yeah. So for me, that's a great point. That still goes back to the congruence though. Right. So, am I aligning all of these things together? Because what you just said, I often see as a mistake is people will say, hey, well, I want to create authority. I want to do all of these things. And then they're incongruent and they start doing all this top of funnel general stuff. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. You have to focus on those long tail keywords and the related semantic keywords as well, because Google's looking at those just as well, just as much as the specific words that you're looking for. When you talk about how much traffic it takes to get a person to contact you, most B2Bs are happy with a 1.5 to 3.5% conversion rate. That means to get 3 phone calls, if you're at the top of that, 3 phone calls, that you have to have 100 people come to your website from that specific. Most of those terms in a month only have 100 people doing that. If you're a number one of that particular term, you're only getting 33% of the click-throughs, and not everybody clicks through, right? So we have to generate a lot of traffic, because if you only got 3 phone calls in a month, do you have 100% close rate, or do you have a 30% close rate? Well, if you have a 30% close rate, you got 1 new client. And if you're looking for 4 clients, that means I need to have a minimum of 12 calls. And of those 12 calls, I'm assuming that every one of them are a qualified buyer, which doesn't happen, right? So we're actually talking about 20 calls. So I'd like to see 4 calls a week from my website if I'm trying to get 2 new clients a month.
Okay, so now I start thinking about the next step or phase or partition, and sometimes it's a lead wall, is that, okay, I get all of these things aligned, but then what happens next? I have to get these people, into a process, right, that will ultimately lead to, a sales process that will lead into a closing process. And so I see if people do get these things aligned, they get them right. It's just like they don't have any type of follow-up. They don't have any type of engagement. It's like they miss all of those things that are getting thrown over the fence.
They bought the perfect bicycle and forgot to ride it. You got to pedal the bike. It's a self-powered machine. Digital marketing can get them up to the door. You got to get them the rest of the way. Okay. And there are a lot of things that can automate that. If you have an appointment system that you like to do a discovery call, great. Get your content to where they're getting a discovery call, they're automatically getting on your calendar, and then have that follow-up process to make sure that your show rate is very high. But from there, it's up to you or whomever you have delegated the sales process to take it to the finish line. So as a digital marketer, a lot of people are like, well, why don't you work on performance-based? I was like, because I have no control of your sales process. And at that point, I don't have any control over your customer service, you actually providing the service process. So if your end revenue, I can only show you potential revenue, right? So here's the potential revenue. Now you got to close it. So if you need closer expertise, then we need to get a sales consultant to work with you or your sales team to make sure you're getting the highest close rate possible. Okay. And then from that feedback from the salespeople, we're always going to try to filter out those unqualified people. And then that creates that feedback loop, right? So I think that it's just a lack of follow-ups. People just think you're going to build it and they will come. And it'll all take care of itself.
Okay. Yes. Well, that brings me up to and thinking about something that I refer to, and I'll let you make sure you swallow because you may lose it if after I say this, is what I call, and I see technology businesses, all B2B businesses will fall into this trap, and it is the let's get naked trap. Meaning that I may generate these things, but then we try to get them straight to, hey, let's get a demo, right? Let's get a,
okay, yeah.
What do you recommend that people do so they don't fall into the let's get naked trap? Because essentially that's what it is. It's like, right, hey, we're on a dating thing and we already want to get intimate. People don't want that. That's not going to happen.
Well, you have to, before you get into the process of marketing, you have to understand your sales cycle. Digital marketing follows the same sales cycle as a human being to human being does. Okay. When we read the words on the internet, we are reading what people assume a person is saying. So we're still building that trustability and likability that must be there for them to want to talk to you, because that's the only people we do business with, people we like and people we trust. So If you're not likable, you're not trustable, and you're not talking to my pain point, I'm not even going to start talking to you. But assume that you've done all of that. You've got everything aligned, like you said, Jim, and they call. You have to assume that you're still starting at square one. Hi, Mr. Vazinski. It's great to meet you. I see that you're this and this. You still have to build that rapport. You still have to find out where they are in the sales cycle. You need to figure out how do they make their decisions and all the things that go into that sales process for your industry, because every industry and every service is going to be different, right? So if I'm selling a SaaS, sometimes it is a matter of, do you have this problem? Do you like these features? Let's get on a call for a demo. Okay, boom. Now, from the demo, you might have a different sales process than somebody else. Depends on what the software does, right? And we have to take a look at that end product and go, how does that integrate? Is this a software that takes 6 months to integrate into the next business? Ooh, well, then we're not going to be getting naked the first date, right? We might have to have dinner this time, and then we might have to go have coffee, just break the ice a little bit more. And then maybe we talk about what would it look like if we dated long-term, right? Because we're getting married at that point when you have such an integrated process, right? For me, it's the same way. My sales cycle is about just giving and giving and giving until really most of my clients that I work with today, I've never asked for a sale. And a lot of salespeople are like, oh, you're losing all this business. No, I'm not. I'm avoiding a lot of headaches. Because if I pressure these people into making a decision before they're ready, and I convince them that I'm the right person when I might not be, I'm just giving myself the headache. I'm creating less profitability for me, and I'm doing a disservice to the people that I'm taking money from.
Okay, so think about that. So what does that look like? You gave a good example a second ago. For me, as you're saying that, if I do that, and those are my tactics, they are going to be what I call PETA clients or PETA customers. They're a pain in your arse.
We have that.
Right? There's an expectation that they have in their own mind that you haven't aligned with, going back to that alignment piece. And so therefore you're going to have to be continuously setting an expectation that was never set to begin with. What else can you experience if you do that?
So when you put somebody who doesn't match your process, so let's just work with service space here. Okay. Each service should have a process. So there should be an onboarding process. There should be an ongoing process. There should be an evaluation process, a deepening the relationship process, right? And then an offboarding process, because at some point they're going to not need you or they're not going to want to need you anymore. Okay. And you need to make sure they offboard as beautifully as you onboarded them, because what they say about you after they leave is just as important as all those little referrals you're hoping for out there too. Okay. Make and break you. I have had people exit interview that have given me 5-star reviews. It just wasn't a fit because of where they were at in their business. And we both looked at it and said, you know what, this should be the end of our relationship before it goes sour. And while we're both loving each other, would you be willing to help me with my future marketing by telling other people your experience here? Boom, done. You also, that offboarding they come back. You had some people that do that. So if you don't set that all up, and then now you try to force somebody who doesn't fit into all those wickets, you're having to create new processes all the way through the client journey. That is very inefficient. Inefficiency equals non-profitability.
Well, yeah. So in other words, this goes back to that scale piece and predictability piece and all of that. If, how do I take my organization and actually improve or increase, my revenue with preserving or adding, to my profitability? Because we can grow for the sake of sacrificing profitability, and that's one of the ways you do it. Just like you said, I've also done it.
It sucks.
Oh yeah. And actually, as they say, there's always, for me at least, there's always a silver lining. For me, that was my COVID silver lining. I was going down a path, that really it wasn't sustainable in the long run. And all I was doing was just burning my candle at both ends. And so then COVID hit, and reflection opportunity that so many of us had the opportunity to go through. It's like, I'm not going to do that again.
I fortunately it was before COVID. Had I not had my revelation until COVID, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. So, but I luckily had mine there, but I was growing my business broke. I had a multi-million-dollar creative agency that had all of the bells and whistles that I was supposed to have, but I wasn't following the rule of 26. I didn't have the rule of 26 back then, but that whole part of billing what you're supposed to bill, as far as what you're valued at, and making sure all the things we're talking about, we were taking everybody in and we were undercharging them. So therefore underserving them, and I didn't have the profitability. So if I had a bad quarter, I would have been gone. 1 quarter away from bankruptcy. Everybody's out of a job. 25 people can't feed their families in the next month and a half.
Yeah, that adds to the burden and the complexity that you were talking about, and detracts from the whole velocity piece. And that's very apparent for a lot of people. And I think that's why, even if you're in an organization and you're experiencing that, why so many people are just voluntarily leaving at some alarming rates. I want to go back to something you said a moment ago, and want to get a little bit better understanding, because prior to us recording, I talked about some of the educational things that I've gone through, and one of them is I went through a workshop with Dr. Robert Cialdini, who's considered the godfather or founder of the science of persuasion, because a lot of the research that he had conducted at Arizona State University and has subsequently built upon since his retirement and stuff. And he talks about likability being one of the persuasion levers that we need to pay attention to. And during his workshop, he said something that I've been able to, it's just kind of like one of those things I'll take to the grave. And he said, it's like, even as kids, we're told, and we're, supposedly taught that, we need to get people to like us. We need to be likable. And he said, that's actually wrong-headed. He said, what we need to do is we need to get people to understand that we like them. And that's the key differentiator when you want to stand out, is that, so if we're talking about, a prospect, we're talking about a client, that they aren't necessarily saying, well, I like Mike or I like Jim. It's that they're saying, you know what? He really likes me. He gets me. He understands me.
Right.
And that's really the platinum, rule that we want to be able to deliver upon. So how does that fit into the rule of 26, that people understand that I like them?
Well, when you're talking to their problems and you're showing them how that you can make their life easier, you're talking to your willingness to help them. And we usually don't help people that we don't like. And so if we're always there in a service projection, right? Like we're here to serve, then we are projecting that likeness, right? The other part of that is then obviously connection, right? So a salesperson is going to need to be able to connect. So you have to, this goes past marketing, right? This goes into the sales process. But in the sales process, we want to make sure that we are connecting with them at some level. So that first 5 to 10 minutes, you'll always notice that a free consultation will be the breaking the ice, right? And we're just getting to know each other. And the good salesperson will find something that you two have in common, and they'll use that throughout, and they'll use it in their parables. They'll use it in anything that they have an example for. So it's like, hey, do you like hockey? Oh, you like hockey? I love hockey. Oh man, who do you like? Oh, I like the Kings. Oh, you like the ball. Oh, that's awesome. Did you watch the game? Yeah, we did. Okay. Hey, I don't want to waste your time, but let's get into here. And then all of a sudden down in the road, and there's an example, okay. So it's kind of like when you're icing and you're blah, 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 right? Now you are talking like a friend. And that's how I do it. I find things that I like about somebody and I just like them, right? If I don't like them, like a lot of people don't realize, you don't have to take a client. A prospect does not have to be a client. If you don't like them, don't do business with them. If you don't trust them, don't do business with them. It's like, let them go. Hey, you know what? I don't think this is a really good fit for us. Tell you what, I do have somebody who might be a better match for you. And you have somebody in your industry that can help this person that would be a better match.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's that competitor you don't like.
You can do that. 9 times out of 10, it's just a personality conflict, right?
It is.
And so I look at my team and I go, okay, these are the personalities. And I look at my prospect and go, this is their personality. Do I have somebody that would fit? Oh, I don't. You know what? I have people I love who do the same thing I do that are good matches for these people. So I give them that business. Guess what they do? When they go run into that same problem, they give me that business. So now we're both getting business, the good business. Not all money is good money. Not all clients are good clients. We all know this. But in the heat of the moment of getting the sale, we seem to shut off that logic. And we go, yes, please hire me, PITA.
That's very true. But if you think about it, this is kind of the full circle. If I am heavily relying on word of mouth and I'm heavily relying on referrals and I have that unpredictability, I have to take that client.
Got to get out of that cycle. Yeah, you have to get your sales cycle. How can you do projections if you're always working on hope? We're going to go right back to where we started, right? You can't. And if you can't make projections of growth, then you might as well just make projections of declining sales and death of your business. It's over and over. There's 5 out of 100 businesses make it past the first year, and only 2 out of those 5 make it past year 3 or 5. I mean, 1 out of 100 make it past 5 years.
Well, there's one other option. I mean, that is going to happen, or the other option, and it's not always available, but it's retraction.
Mm-hmm.
So the retraction piece. So then maybe I go and doing something part-time, and I have a job, and I'm doing this on the side. So there's a retraction that takes place, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, but it's a slippery slope.
Yep.
And what happens is that pain and your wife and your kids and your hobbies and your education and all the other things have to go away. You have to start pushing the time that you were getting for the giving to those things out of the way so that you can now serve 2 masters. And so it becomes a really slippery slope. And so it's really, if I could talk to every business that first started and we looked at their budget, usually the marketing budget is the last number, if it's even in their business plan. It's usually the smallest number it possibly can be versus the other way around.
Okay. So I have to share with you. So I worked for 15 years for an academic that's exactly what her balance sheet looked like. And she told me, you want to make sales? I'm paying your salary, fill your own sales funnel. It's like, that was a crusher, man. That's why I lost so many hair follicles over the years.
That's horrible. That's a horrible boss.
But you know what? It challenged me to do things that I probably would have never been able to learn or do. And so I have to reflect back on that and say, it was a learning experience that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And it was that challenge that I, stood up to. And now, especially with COVID and everybody having to be successful in the digital world, that I possessed some experiences that very few people have. So you move on, right?
Right. Okay. Oh yeah. I mean, I think anybody who sits there and says, well, I wish that never happened to me, doesn't realize what hardship does for your future. If it was always easy, you would end up as a soft individual.
Oh, most definitely. Resilience is a skill that you have to be able to build, and you have to put yourself in the place to build resilience. All right. So, man, fantastic conversation. Let's close this up. Okay. So Mike, I'm sitting there. I'm a B2B service business. I'm a digital marketer. Either I'm part of the business or I maybe even own the business, whatever. What should I be thinking right now?
The first thing you have to do is figure out is really take inventory of what you're doing to bring in qualified leads to your business. What are you, because the marketing department or your marketing efforts are serving their client is the sales person. Okay. Now, if you're the owner and you do both marketing and sales, you are your client. Okay. So that makes that conversation really easy, right? But sometimes, especially in B2B, you have the marketing department and you have the sales department. So talking back and forth going, hey, how are the leads from this effort going for you? What's your close rate there versus this other way of us giving you leads, right? What are people saying? So we're taking full inventory of the conversations salespeople are having. What are the profitable conversations versus the unprofitable conversations? What are the quality of leads? What is actually creating leads? What's not, right? We need to streamline and get rid of all the trash so that we can take all that's left over from what we're not doing anymore and put it back into the bandwidth and budget to start testing new ways of getting them better leads. That's the first step every business should be doing at the beginning of every sales cycle. And a lot of times I tell folks, look at it every quarter. Take inventory every quarter and say, do we need to go through the simple?
Michael Blazinski, man, a lot of good tips. I mean, the rule of 26, definitely, something you want to pick up. But if people want to learn more and connect with you, how do they do that?
Very simple. Go to the website, buzzworthy.biz. At the top of the website, I do have access to my book, The Rule of 26. If you want to streamline the sales strategy, the marketing strategy process of your business and your service-based business, this short book right here will get you on your way in just a couple of hours. And then everything that we have to offer for service-based businesses is there at buzzworthy.biz. That's BUZZWORTHY.biz.
Michael Blazinski, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.